Okay, we will be going live in about 4 minutes. So just be patient, enjoy the music, and we're gonna have a great session. So just give me a few. Okay, we're starting today. Welcome everyone. DEGA Talks. DEGA Talks is happening. We had a great person as invited here. I'm gonna be honest about him. He's doing what I love to do and what I dreamt to do when I got into college. He followed his path. I admire him as crazy, and honestly, he's living the dream. I went to school to do what he does. I just didn't. And seeing him making, achieving, creating, going nuts with a tough journey, struggling, battling for his dreams and seeing how far he's got, it just makes me admire him even more. So it's my pleasure, my enjoyment, my exciting. It's exciting because we haven't talked in a long time. To welcome here Alejandro Gonzales. Alejo, Welcome to DEGA Talks, my friend. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, my friend.
It's so nice to hear from you. It's been ages.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of like we were beginning our journeys when we started talking. You was like the first, like the first of our dreams and everything. And I always were looking like, oh my God, this is the guys that are doing like the coolest things ever. So, but we split it up and we didn't talk for a long time. And for the audience here, he's the one that brought me to Web3. That's why I got into NFTs. That's why I got into blockchain. That's why I got, because I saw Alejo was doing it. And I was like, what the hell is this? So I had to get into it. But let's start from the beginning, Alejo. He's like, we gotta start getting to know who you are. Who's Alejo? Like, what does Alejo dream with? It's like, tell us about you a little bit.
Okay. How far along do you want to go? Like all the way? Because it can get pretty long. I'll try to keep it short so we can have more of a conversation. But essentially, I got into digital media and everything digital very, very young. I was born in Colombia, but when I was like 12, 13 years old, I had the opportunity to live abroad. My dad, he was a civil engineer, and he got a little bit tired of working at some point, and he wanted to take like a sabbatical. So he went to do what he liked. He was structural. He loved like everything around structures and earthquakes and all of that. So he took a resident professor position at the University of California in Berkeley. So I went there with my brothers, and that's kind of where I had my first contact with technology, like broadly. Before that, I had played a little bit with some like very, very early consoles like the Odyssey 2 and Atari and stuff like that. But when I was there, I had the opportunity to get like a lot closer to technology. My first computer was a Commodore 128, and I loved kind of what I could do with it. Not only play but create stuff, and that was awesome for me. And a little bit later, I wanted to go into 3D animation and 3D stuff. Still living in the US, around 13 years old, I started kind of playing around with a PC and discovered like a 3D design through my dad. Him being an engineer introduced me to like CAD programs like AutoCAD and stuff like that. So I started playing around with 3D. I came back to Colombia, and when I finished high school, I really wanted to learn a lot more. So I discovered some 3D software. Like at that time, there's a computer program called the 3D Studio for DOS. So I started playing with that, and coincidentally, I started noticing that here. At least in my dad's field of work, he was presenting projects with watercolor drawings and scale models, like in a cardboard and stuff like that. So I started using 3D software to help him out and present some of these projects. He actually introduced me to an architectural firm here, where I taught some architects how to make 3D renderings and stuff like that, which I kind of like, but I really enjoyed a lot more making, like I wanted to make 3D film. At that point, there were no like films in 3D, like a Toy Story and stuff like that. So it was like a dream, like a pipe dream, because nobody had realized it. But still, I wanted to make some of that. But the vehicle was just teaching architects how to make a 3D. That's kind of how my first touch with a computer animation and whatnot.
And that's how your first company was born, also, like that's
A
what.
little bit later, yeah. So I when I started high school, I taught these guys how to make 3D. With my first paycheck, I actually purchased a license of 3D Studio, which was pretty nice. At this, like for a high schooler, uh, maybe I could have spent it in a lot more partying, but that was kind of my first investment. I would say was buying kind of that license. but still, I went. I didn't know what to study as for like my major or like a college or anything like that, because there isn't anything like a computer animation related in Colombia at that time. Um, so I was kind of between physics, graphic design, even kind of computer science. But I wasn't sure what to study. So I kind of carried on with helping my dad. So I ended up studying architecture just because it combined a little bit of art and a little bit of technique, and I could do 3D. But I was clear to my dad that I never wanted to like build anything or design buildings or stuff like that. But when I was actually surprised when 4 or 5 years later, when I finished at the university, people were still using watercolors and that kind of stuff. And actually, the guys that were can you hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you perfectly,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. So keep going, bro.
So yeah, my image went off for a second on my screen. So uh, I was actually surprised that people were still using watercolors and scale models to sell projects. And the guys that were doing 3D renderings, like the top guys here in Colombia, were the three guys that I taught back when I was at high school. So I was actually surprised that in 5 years the state of the art had gone nowhere. Almost depressed by it because I was expecting a lot more. But very quickly I found that not only in Colombia but also abroad, it was still the same. So a friend of mine went to Miami, and he called me one day and told me that it was kind of the same as in Colombia. So I decided to venture and create my company. I actually started in Florida, a small company called Zerofractal, and we're doing this kind of renderings and projects. And we're actually lucky that at that point in time, Miami was the place in the world where most construction was happening. So it was kind of being at the right place at the right time. 2 or 3 years later, we were one of the top three companies doing computer renderings in the US. It's kind of lucky, I guess.
But can you call it a gut feeling, or do you do like a study of the market and all that, or
Oh
you just
no,
follow your?
we, I, I'd like to think that we were playing lucky, and I'm not sure if we were, but like I knew that there was a need for a product that back then, which was a infography and renderings, and we were just there, so we went for it and opened a market for ourselves. So like it was a new market. But again, it was not what I was passionate about. So what we ended up doing is that we ended up creating short films about the lifestyle that people could have if they purchased a property. So for me, it was more like a vehicle to create film. Not, I was not into like the rendering part of it, but more about kind of creating film. So that's what set us apart, and we became pretty popular back then. I didn't like the Miami lifestyle at all. Being having no money, starting up a company in Florida, it's super depressing for me. I didn't like that. If you went out for a walk, you'd probably melt a couple of soles from your shoes, and if you ever met like a nice girl, she would live like 2 hours away from you. Like yeah, I hated Miami with passion. So I decided to go back to Colombia. A couple of friends run the business in Florida, but I fled as soon as I could, and I started here. We grew the company to about 80 people around in like 3 4 years. It grew pretty fast, but I didn't want to stop at making like architectural film. So the closest I could get to making like entertainment was making TV commercials. So we started a division making 3D commercials. To my surprise, most of the low end commercials were being done here, but they were very low quality, and then the high end stuff was being contracted to computer animation studios in Canada or something like that. So we started taking a lot of business off like the high end spectrum, and we became like one of the top animation studios here in the country pretty fast as well.
That's when we met, bro.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
when
we, like it was kind of the Wild West because a lot of like the local people were creating like okay quality stuff, but all of the good stuff was being subbed out to US or Canada, and there was a niche for it. So we very quickly started working with the top advertisers here, creating commercials, which was pretty fun. But again, not what I wanted to do. Just a means to an end.
yeah, but that was when Brains was born. Also, that was gave
A
birth
little
to
bit
Brains.
later. So actually, that Zerofractal started around 2000, and I started making commercials like around 2004, give or take 2005, and but around 2007, still a lot of our income came from real estate visualization. We were like the top company for that here, and we're like very like a top end in the US. We were making like the big projects in Dubai, in US, in Canada. We actually opened a second office in Canada for like selling and doing stuff like that in Toronto. Uh, and but all of a sudden, in 2007, most of our clients went bankrupt because there was a bubble in the US with the real estate. And that actually opened my eyes to an opportunity where I saw that probably I should spend my time doing more of what I liked and not what gave us more business. So I parted ways with my partners in the US a little bit later and started we actually started like 2 3 different groups within a single company. Brace was one of those ventures, and we also had one that was making a film. We made 2 short films that were on theaters, and but we saw that the film industry had actually a lot of issues at that point in Colombia. Like it was very tough connecting,
Still
and
does, still does, bro.
I know, but at that point there were no incentives, and it was like literally impossible to connect the distribution, investment, and production. So we had kind of already figured out investment, and no, we hadn't figured out investment. That would be awesome, but we had figured out all of the production for a film, and we were in talks with a lot of distributors. But at that point, digital distribution was not a thing. So you had basically to sign with one of the top 5, and they're all US, like Fox, Disney, Sony, whatnot. Like, and they would see your film and they would say, okay, what's your budget? And we would say like 3 4 million, thinking big, and they'd say, oh, it's a small budget film. And then they'd say, okay, we like your pilot, we'll distribute it, but we'll give you distribution for the Andean region, like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela, something like that. And then you would see the box office of these countries, and it was like a local film was like 3% or 4% of the box office, and then everything was international, i.e., US film. Um, so there was no way that we would make even our $2 4 million back with the local box office. So we decided to bail out of film, and so that was one of the divisions. The second one we had was new media. Essentially, while we're doing advertising, we started getting a lot of calls from agencies asking if we could do this or that. And initially, the asks were like really lame, like doing websites and stuff like that, which I didn't like. But eventually, it got pretty interesting because we started playing around with new technology, which was always in my mind. I always wanted to venture into new technology. We played with stuff like augmented reality, with 3D, interactive 3D gaming, stuff like that. So we ended up making video games for some clients. And we also started making a lot of augmented reality, which at that time was something new. And the word got around. We started posting on forums, like a specialized forums. So people from agencies abroad would start calling us and asking if we could make this or that for them. We made like the first augmented reality music video in the world, long time ago, for an agency in UK, in London. And then a guy from that agency called us one day and asked us if we could make this system for a company, a beer brand called Guinness, and the company was Diageo. They asked us if we could make this game where you would be in a pub, you'd go to a screen, you'd stand in front of the screen, that would scan your face, and you'd create an avatar in real time of yourself, and you'd wind up in a training field like a 22nd century training field where you'd play rugby and do like different sort of challenges and stuff like that. And we ended up doing that within. That's actually how Brains was born. We were creating services for clients, and I was actually in Dublin delivering that project to the client when I thought, okay, the film are not going anywhere, but this video game thing can be a thing, and mobile phones are a thing now, like smartphones. Why don't we make video games for smartphones? So when I came back to Colombia, one of our angel investors, Mauricio Bejarano, I told him the idea. He loved it. And we ended up making a business plan to start raising capital for a mobile video game company out of Colombia. And we were going to go to the US and we actually went to some of these game shows. We met with some friends. Mauricio had actually met a guy called Chris the Wolf. He had funded MySpace, but he had decided to go into mobile games. He had a company at that point called SGN, which later ended up being called Jam City. But that was a long story. So I met with Chris before we started making video games, and he did this off a little bit like making video games out of Latin America. I don't think that you're going to get funded. But we actually did from a local fund, which we were not expecting. We ended up being funded from a VC fund in Colombia called Promotora. I didn't even know that there was VC money in Colombia. Not sure if there still is, to be honest. But we got funded for Brains, and we started that around 2010 with Jairo Nieto, who was actually, I met Jairo sometime before that. He was working for an ad agency. He was a creative director at the agency, and he loved video games. So when I decided to venture into video games with Mauricio, we knew we could make video games, but we didn't know we could make fun video games. So he reminded me that Jairo was a hardcore gamer plus a creative. He was a writer. He had written 2 novels before. So I had a lunch with Jairo one day, and proposed him to partner up and start up Brains. So we did. That's how it started.
Alejo, trust me, this is so funny because I was following you. I was going through my film career, and when you went to Promotora and got all that, we also started talking to Promotora, and kind of like you inspire a lot of my moves, bro. So
actually met Promotora by chance. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't, like Francisco and them.
Yeah. So we were having, and we were called like at that point, 2009, 2010. We were one of the top animation studios in Colombia. We were known for animation. We were not known for video games. So there was an entity in Medellin called Ruta N, which is like a promotion agency. And they called us from Ruta N and asked us if we could make like an assessment of the computer animation industry in Medellin, just to give them some pointers on how to support the local industry in the city. So one of my partners traveled to Medellin, and while having lunch, he was asked, hey, if you guys are looking for capital, there's a VC fund here called Promotora. Do you want to meet them? They said, well, yeah, why not? And they ended up having lunch together. Next week, they were actually visiting our studio in Bogota because they had no idea we were looking for capital. We had no idea there was a VC fund in Colombia. And they actually introduced us to a guy who's a rock star, literally, called Diego Angel.
I love him. I love Diego.
Yeah, he's awesome. He was in our board of directors. If we had listened to him more, we should have made less mistakes as a video game startup. But that's that's a whole other story. He ended up in our board of directors. He assessed our company. He told Promotora that we were the real deal, or at least we looked like it. We managed to fake it, I guess. No, we managed to convince
You were.
Promotora to invest in us. That was really cool and really fun
Dude,
times. We were one like probably the first video game company, not sure in Latam, but in Colombia for sure, to get it VC funded and to create mobile video games.
Diego is a legend, and I have to invite him here. He's also like a
It's awesome.
godfather. Yeah, he is awesome.
Uh,
He's incredible. So
yeah, Diego actually started 15 years earlier than I did in California. He wanted to make animation. He is the real deal. He ended up creating a company called Angel Studios. He made demos for Silicon Graphics. He worked with Microsoft making games. He worked with all of the big guys in the console era, like in the first and second generation consoles. With those guys who worked with Miyamoto in Nintendo, he has awesome stories. He ended up selling his company Angel Studios to Rockstar Games. It became Rockstar San Diego. The technology that his company created is the one that fuels Grand Theft Auto. So not bad. He's an awesome guy.
I know. He's a legend, and he's like the sweetest guy ever. And he like willing to share all his knowledge and experience.
Oh,
And
he's awesome. Yeah.
he owns the most delicious restaurants, I think, in Colombia. So
Probably as well. He's a legend, and that legend actually joined our board and helped us create like we ended up wasting a lot of money from Promotora, but it ended up figuring it out sooner than later, or later than sooner. I'm not sure. Probably if we had listened more to Diego, we would have created a couple less mistakes than we did with the games. But anyhow, that's how we ended up in gaming.
And
Yeah.
Alejo, but that was kind of like you already talked about Jam, so you're already connected there. Then you jumped, yeah, you did that, you achieved it, and then Jam City came in, and that's how this new journey began.
That is another fun, kind of interesting story, I guess. With Brains, we wanted to be independent. We wanted to publish our own games, so we did, and we very quickly found out that it was a hard business, and we went almost bankrupt a couple of times. But that was kind of part of the voyage, I guess. But anyway, we started making a lot of games. The first games that we made were awful. That was before Jairo kind of put his magic touch into our games. Then he said that we should create a tower defense game. We made one of like a very, very nice tower defense game for iOS called Vampire Season. That ended up being runner-up for Game of the Year for Apple in 2012. Then we made another game that went to also runner-up Game of the Year in 2013. And we started kind of advancing and creating very, very cool games. Around 2016, 17, we wanted to create an RTS game called World War Do. We started creating that game, but we actually knew what we were doing at that point a little bit better. So we with the first game, it was a soccer game that never saw the light of day. We wasted like almost $1 million, and it was like endless bit of waste. But we learned a lot with subsequent games. And with World War II, we decided to go into the market super early. So our first prototype we cooked up like in 2 months, and then like 4 months later, we're already publishing the alpha version of the game. Super early, but that alpha version actually got us a very prestigious award. We went to Seattle to Casual Connect, and there was a prize there called the Indie Prize. We won the Best of Show award there on the summer of 2017. And at that point, the market for for mobile gaming was consolidating a lot. So big companies were all like trying to acquire medium-sized studios and games. We started getting a bunch of different offers from different publishers, and we got an offer actually from one of the top publishers in California. Now, it wasn't Jam City at that point, but we didn't like the offer because they wanted us to operate a different game, like a casual game, and we didn't make casual games, and B wanted to make our own. So our board of directors and investors asked us what we wanted to do. We told them that we didn't want to sell, but they asked us if we could show some other teams kind of what we were doing to get their opinion. And Mauricio brought up Jam City again because he was friends with Chris DeWolf from college, and we said, yeah, why not? Jam City didn't make the kind of games that we made. We knew for a fact that they would probably decline kind of our game because there was not kind of up their alley. But to our surprise, they loved the game. There's a guy in there called Johnny Casamasina, their creative director, their creative chief, actually. Loved our game. He was a hardcore gamer. And like a couple of weeks later, there was the president and from Jam City and a couple of other guys visiting Colombia, getting to know our company. That was kind of late 2017. They made an offer for the company right on the spot that same week, and that was very surprising and very interesting for us because now we had like a bunch of different offers, but their offer was to support our game, which we loved. So we ended up kind of in conversations with them. That same year in December, we actually won the innovation prize from Apple for Best of 2017 with World War II. So that was like a reassuring thing that we're on the right track for success. And we announced to the world in February 2018 that we were part of Jam City. Yeah, we got acquired.
Bro, that's inspirational. That's inspirational. Trust me, I was watching you take all the steps. I was like talking to friends that were like in contact with you or former friends or former partners. And it was a game changer for our country because it also showed everyone that it was possible. You showed the path that it's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, like one thing that like again, and again, you know me, I don't care about those kind of accolades or bragging or anything like that. But it was pretty sweet to see. It was probably the first exit of a video game company in Latin America. So that is in itself pretty cool because it showed other entrepreneurs that it was feasible. Sometime later, like for example, Nimble Giant was acquired in Argentina. There's been some acquisitions after that, which is very nice to see. The Inter-American Development Bank actually published a book about video games, and it's pretty sweet to see our story and the story of other studios all merged there in that book.
I do have to ask you because you kind of like your journey and you can say like if I'm stepping over or asking like where I shouldn't, but it's kind of like when you follow your God, your heart, and your passion, everything ended up working out. When you try to play a different game, it didn't work out. Kind of like life guided you towards the right path.
Yeah, like I think that is like you cannot make like a recipe for success. Is success always has to have like it's kind of similar to when you're cooking. If you just follow like verbatim a recipe, you might get like a nice dish. But I think that you get a great dish when you follow your heart a little bit. Like it has to have like 50% recipe, 50% gut and heart. Or else you'll just be that plate, and that plate is in a recipe book for something already. There's people who have already made it, so you cannot like if you want to innovate, you have to put a little bit of spice on it, I guess.
That's so cool, bro. But then I'm gonna jump to the other crazy thing. So you become part of Gem City. You start working with those guys. I guess you clicked with Chris and all that. Did you see Web3? And let me tell you, like, not all game companies are seeing it, saw it, or are taking advantage of it. That's one of the reasons DEGA exists, by the way. So that's why we're building this infrastructure so everyone can create freely and with less obstacles than the ones you had. But
Yeah.
you saw it. You guys saw it, and you said, "Hey, we gotta jump into this. We gotta create a game." How's the story of Champions, bro? Because I think that's a big, huge
I
leap
I,
in
I
innovation.
cannot take that credit by a long shot. I wasn't the one to see it at all. Like obviously, like after World War II, we got asked by the heads of Jam City what we wanted to do. We didn't want to make casual games. Jam City excels in making mobile casual games. Like if you've seen the Harry Potter game, Frozen, Jurassic Park, Family Guy, like tons of games with IPs. We knew we didn't want to make an IP based game. We wanted to create something new, and we knew that we didn't want to make a casual game. There's so many stories that I wish I could tell about kind of that point in time that cannot be kind of told, I guess, because a lot of projects did not kind of see the light of day. But we got the chance to choose a little bit where we wanted to go next as a studio within Jam City. And we said we want to try to make a multi-platform game. We want to go outside of the mobile screen. We want to create something for PC, console, mobile, everything. And we started prototyping projects. We pitched like 15 different projects. We shortlisted 3 of them, started prototyping them all, ended up loving one of them. That was like a cooperative multiplayer arena, like in like a battleground game. Super cool, very nice. We loved that process, but at some point, a couple of years ago, our creative chief, Johnny, told us that he wanted to share an idea about a project that he had on his mind called the Champions. And he basically told us over a call about this gladiatorial world, kind of similar to what you see on wrestling, like WWE, but imagine it with gladiators and the coliseums and like very gritty, very bloody, very interesting with this ascension path towards eternity. So we decided to venture onto that. We put on hold our battleground game, but we had developed a lot of technology for multiplayer and PC console, and the company knew that, and they knew that we were kind of the best studio within the organization to tackle that project. So we started creating that world visually. We started developing all of that idea. Initially, there was input from another studio in Toronto, and then they tagged on another studio in San Francisco. But at the end of the day, we were like doing the most of the project out of Colombia. So Ido ended up being kind of the director for Champions, and we worked together to create that world. We started to kind of learning about Web3. At that point, many studios wanted to venture into Web3, but many studios very quickly decided to unventure from Web3, as you saw probably a year and a half ago, 2 years, like a year ago. Ubisoft announced they were going to do Web3. They launched something that was not great. And then EA announced that they were going to do something Web3, Square Enix, everybody, like all of the big guns. So it was like almost a race against time. But one thing that benefited us is that we were a very agile studio. Even within a bigger organization like Jam City, we managed to create the world like in a couple of months and generate like the visuals for what you saw in Champions. Then we made a drop in February last year for Champions, like the Prime Eternals, which was moderately, like, it was successful. It could have been much better, but at that point, crypto was already like in a winter. So with a crypto winter and a global war in Ukraine going on that week, I think it fared pretty well as our drop, and we decided to continue venturing. And later that year, in September, we published an open alpha of the game, like with a social experience in the tavern. Then a couple of weeks later, we opened up a courtyard for it. Then a couple of weeks later, we opened a combat for it. We've been working like crazy, doing weekly releases for Champions. But it's been like a great adventure, great learning. Definitely not me who thought about making a Web3 game, but been learning a lot about it and do understand. Like also the Web3 gaming world changed with like right in front of our eyes. It kind of reminded me to the time when we started making mobile games. Games were premium back then, and it shifted towards free to play, like free games within app purchases. Sort of that same transition is happening right now in Web3, where like games like Axie and Play to Earn and all of that crap is no longer the thing, but we're looking a little bit more ahead into how Web3 really should belong within entertainment and video games.
And dude, that I know you don't take credit for that, but venturing and jumping into someone's idea, it's okay. Seeing the opportunity is great. Also following that, it's amazing. But executing and maintaining, we need to have a great gameplay. We need to have a great game, but we need to create a community behind it. And the community behind what you're doing is huge, is amazing, is really involved. They're testing. They tested they're testing the new things you're putting out. And the most important thing is you're delivering, and you're delivering quality. I'm a Prime Eternal, by the way. So, but dude, it's all this happening. It was magic. Again, opening our eyes and showing us all these opportunities is inspirational as usual in your path. Like I feel like a lot of people and like following behind what you do. I know you don't like to take credit and you don't brag, and you're very humble, by the way, and I love that. But that's what keeps you going forward. And before we jump into people's questions, I want to say something. There's more than 150 people in Twitter listening to this. So welcome everyone, people on Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. Also welcome. If you want to ask questions, if you want to ask what's going on, I invite you to the DEGA Discord, dega.gg/DEGA. So you can ask questions later for Alejo. But right now, I'm going to jump into, okay, so Champions becomes this massive Web3 force, you're making history in Web3 gaming now. But then you have another jump. You do another move. You take another bet, bro. It's like you're already there. You're already making it, but you still got to do something else and jump ahead. Why? How? Or what are you doing, bro?
Well, so at some point last year, we were actually at NFT NYC with Chris the Wolf and with Jairo, and he starts kind of querying, kind of like he tells us about this crazy idea to spin off into a new company. One thing was kind of certain is that Jam City is a mobile game company, and Web3 is just a very, very different beast. Like the risk involved, and how things are done, even how revenue is recognized, like everything about that is just so different to mobile gaming that he wanted to see if there was like an avenue where that could be spun out somehow. It was a long process. I wouldn't say painful, but it had a lot of like intricacies just to make everybody happy. But in mid-January, it was announced that Plai Labs was born. Plai Labs is a new company started up by Chris the Wolf and Aber Whitcomb, who started Jam City, who started MySpace. Actually, Chris and Aber left Jam City, and part of the deal, and it was that Jairo, myself, Johnny would be starting that company with them, which is pretty cool to be on the startup saddle again. And it's a company that like our sole purpose is to marry emerging technologies and entertainment, and it makes a lot of sense if you see like Chris's and neighbor's trajectory. They were there for when the Web 1 became social. Practically the first social network in the West was created by them. Then they were one of the first and top companies to jump into mobile entertainment, and now this third generation of web with the blockchain and with AI and everything that's going on, made a lot of sense to start something out with them, and we're really, really excited about it. So at the end of the operation, all of our studio in Colombia, plus Champions Ascension, which is our forefront, like anchor tenant product for Plai Labs, came to be within Disney organization.
Dude, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's an amazing story. So I gotta ask you, because we're also working, like we're working in infrastructure for gaming and in gaming and metaverse to empower humanity and to power actually everyone to create and to connect everyone through gaming and play and Web3. And we all know this technology will become invisible. You know, we will stop talking of NFTs as we talk as NFTs. We'll talk about assets in a normal way once it becomes easier. And that's what we're doing, by the way. But I do have to ask you, now with AI, now with everything that's going on, we've seen it coming from, I guess, 3 years back. But now the ways is growing in the masses and everything. Where do you see our world going, bro? Where do you see, or what do you think, or where are your bets, or like, you know, for the near future? We cannot think 5 years. I'm talking about the next 2 years, next year.
I think that we're currently at a transition of sorts, like from traditional kind of entertainment to new generation of entertainment, where players are going to become creators. I think that AI is going to play like a very important part of that. But at the same time, they're going to like there's going to be ownership of assets within video games. I'm not still sure about the whole interoperability. I have high hopes for it, and I think that a lot of companies like ours are trying to figure that out. But I think that it starts with ownership more than blockchain or not. I think that people like blockchain is still a very niche market for enthusiasts and people who go into like all of the friction and the process of creating wallets and having cryptocurrencies and all of that. But I think that sooner than later it's going to converge with the mass, where it's going to be seamless for people. They'll just, for the most part, know that they own assets within a game or a project. But I don't think that people will care too much about the underlying technology for it. And I think that the companies that are thinking like that are going to be more successful than the companies that are just thinking about the purity and the intricacies of the blockchain and all of that, which is great. I think that and for me, blockchain is like when you were seeing Betamax and VHS or DVD and Blu-ray and all of that. It's a tech, but at the end, what's important is the content and the vehicle for people to own assets and be able to make actual money from those, or kind of have interoperability opportunities for them. That's where I see most of the things going into the future. Technology, it's just technology, you know. Like we need to go deep in it, but we need to make it accessible for people.
And I always say, bro, this is becoming a tribal economy again. So it's kind of like we went from the information age to the creator age, and now there's so many opportunity, and there will be more for, as you said, players become creators, and everyone will be able to create what their dream in with the technologies we're building. The question is like, it's going to be about the tribes and tribal economies and allowing the people to create their own economies. And I see that happening already in Champions community and the way people are managing that. So I think you have one of the strongest community in the Web3 space, bro. And that's not easy to accomplish. So how was that approach? Because it doesn't happen that often. And I've seen like major influencers, major famous people that cannot get a tribe going. Yeah, they bring a lot of people and they have a lot of numbers in the top of their communities, but the engagement is near zero. But when you look at what you're doing with the community there, you see people are playing, you see people are exchanging, you see people are like I have this prime, you got this pets, and there's a whole economy already going in there. And when you saw it in the Discord happening, even your arcade economy was working out. People were working every day to get coins and stuff like that. And we use that learnings and teachings as inspiration also, bro. But how did you pull that off? How was your approach there?
I was not like I think that again it's a little bit serendipitous to an extent. I think that when we started out, and again, I think that growing a community is not extremely hard, but you'll get full of people that are not engaged. Engaging a community, it's a different aspect. So we also learned a lot from our mistakes. I think that on the Prime drop, we created a lot of these campaigns that were incentivized. So to tell people like follow us on Twitter, go into our Discord, do all of this crap, and you get a whitelist spot for our first drop. And we got like something like 100K people on our Discord. But if you look at the actuals, there are a lot less. Like there's a lot of bots and stuff like that. So I think that the real work starts by generating engagement. I think that the truest of engagement is committing to a plan and developing a plan, acknowledging that some things change like along the way. A lot of things have changed in Web3, but one thing that is not changing is that we are delivering results every single week to our community. There's a new version of our game every single week. There's new features. There's new content. So I think I don't mind too much about growing. I mind more about engaging, like actual engaging with the community. That's a lot harder. It's a combination between like great people working with the community, like Squiddy or like Chris Knittle and everybody kind of in our team, Matt, Henry, like all of those guys doing their job. But more than that is kind of actually delivering every single week something new, like a great experience for players, listening to players, finding ways to understand what they want, and not necessarily what they say they want is what they want. So that's also hard, but kind of realizing what they really need and trying to commit to that and creating a great experience through a game.
And by the way, Squiddy is amazing. Just the story. I was also in New York City NFT New York, and I met with Squiddy, and I found you were there, and you were all there, and I got COVID. And it was like NFT New York COVID.
No worry, I got COVID too.
Okay, so I guess we interacted with the same people, or it was Squiddy. It was Squiddy.
We made like a small meetup with some of our holders. Not sure if I caught it there, but when I came back home, I tested positive. So I actually had to stay at a hotel for a week after NFT NYC. I didn't want to bring COVID home. So
let's blame it on Squiddy, bro. Because
maybe that's the easy one.
Yeah, I know. He's
actually, probably I got COVID to. I gave COVID to even our CEO. So yeah, probably Squid is a safe bet to get.
No, and yeah, community is not about audience; it's about tribe. But that's the people you see testing CA every day. Like every time you launch it and they're announcing it, they're playing it. That's the real feedback you get. It's not like the FUD or the LFG or WAGME or all those things don't matter at the end.
I think that all of that, like all of the FUD and all of the WAGME and all of that, it interesting to see, but the real deal is delivering. Like when we started, there are like hundreds of video game projects, but funnily enough, I cannot play them. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to say that I'm going to build something and build nothing. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, true, bro. And that's why for me, tribe is different than community. It's kind of like audience, community, tribe, and you work with the tribe. But I'm gonna open to questions because I think I
Guys,
took.
I actually have to make a hard stop at like in 9 minutes, but I'd love to hear a couple of you guys.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say we have 9 minutes left. I guess that's two questions. So if anyone wants to ask, I know there's people on Twitter, there's people on other social networks. So, but Sadek, Richie, Milendro, like Dab Rachel, Ray, Gerald, Dante, who's like a top gamer, by the way. He's like the champions of our tournament. Softa Star, any of you, and Asta, if you have questions, this is the time to drop them, please. So we only have time for a few questions, or if you're seeing questions in other channels, please post them here. If not, I'll keep asking questions to Alejo because I'm really excited to finally have him and getting to talk to him. So let's just give a minute, Alejo, for questions, and we will follow, and we will finish before it's 10 a.m. for us. Okay. I'm gonna invite the professor to the stage, by the way. Professor, I'm inviting you to the stage so you can ask your question and talk to Alejo. He's like, the professor is the sensei, so Alejo, he's like one of my most respected friends. He's part of the project, so Professor, meet Alejo.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Alejo. Thank you so much for your time. It has been just amazing to have you as this premium guest that we have nowadays today, right? So thank you so much. Alejo, I heard everything that you have been doing, and it's amazing. So congratulations. And one of like the most important thing for DEGA is, as you said a couple of minutes ago, is that technology serves a purpose, right? That in this case is to entertain and to give value and to actually engage people into doing this. I heard also that you have a lot of experience from the, let's say, the casual gaming, right? That generates a lot of engagement. So my question is, how do you see casual gaming and mobile games, like their role in adoption for blockchain nowadays? Because what we see a lot is that there's so many amazing game studios that are focusing on developing AAA games, right? That are like amazing stories and like long developments, right? Like you know this story, right? But at the same time, it's so much time for them to launch a game that they can be launching a lot of mini games, a lot of casual games to be successful in each of these launches, right? So what is your perspective of that? And what will be your advice for these game studios that we work on, like that we serve, right? In order for them to be like to understand how they can be successful, not only in blockchain gaming, but in gaming overall, right? Based on your experience.
That is actually complex in the sense that casual is sort of synonym to super massive. If you see casual games, mobile casual games, they are like the more successful ones, like Jam City, have hundreds of thousands of DAU or millions of DAU. But if you look at those people, they are not the same people that you see on Web3 nowadays by a long shot. They are not like the crossover between those is really, really minimal. Part of the reason why we went with a more core experience to start with is that there was two reasons for it. I'm not sure if it still holds. This changes a lot, but one is that like the biggest capital seen for a mobile casual game maker is friction. we like before at Jam City, we had departments that were in charge of consumer insights that would look at our FTUI, for example, our first time user experience, our tutorials, just to make sure that we have like negligible drop off of people, and we manage to retain people that come download the game, come back, open it, then come back the next day, then come back 7 days after that, 30 days, 60 days, or a year after downloading. But those folk are not the same folk as the Web3 community. So I would think that right now it wouldn't be really challenging for mobile casual to adopt a blockchain like openly, unless you set it up in such a way that it's all done for the player, like automated, and they don't even know that they're on the blockchain, probably, because like they would very likely not care about it. With hardcore gamer, there is a small difference, and I saw this difference like 10 years ago for PC games, is that on PC games, there's a lot of friction. People don't mind downloading a launcher like Steam or like Epic Store. They don't mind then downloading a 100 gigabyte game and then they creating an account, and then the game crashes, then updating your driver for your graphics card, and all of that is friction. So audience is a lot more used to friction. So if you have to spend 2 days opening a wallet and funding a wallet, a crypto wallet, that is the equivalent of friction. So probably there's a little bit more overlap with that audience. But again, the other thing is that in hardcore gamer, there's also competitive gaming, which is a little bit of where we might be shooting for with Champions. And with competitive gaming, your assets start having like more value, and when your assets have more value, then probably owning those assets and being able to sell them or buy items on with a real kind of on an open kind of marketplace makes a lot more sense. So there's like many different angles. It's not like a very straightforward question. Obviously, what we learned from casual gaming back at Jam City, we applied as much as we can, but I think it's still not there. Maybe a little bit down the road, it'll be so seamless that adoption for mobile casual will be massive. But I don't think that we're there yet.
Interesting, very interesting point of view. Yeah, because of the friction. When you said about the competitive side, what we see in our community is like that tournaments are really helping us to engage and to bring people into our platform. Like that is a growth driver for everything that we are doing right now. So it makes sense that you're saying that competitions and being competitive is a great way for adoption. And also
that also guarantees retention. Like I think that the competitive gamer is going to be there for you no matter what.
Yes, it makes sense. Also, just I know we have 1 minute because you have a hard stop. So, but is it okay if we organize a tournament with you guys? Like it would be amazing to do something. I don't know if
I'm not like on the day-to-day on that organization. Probably Joaco from our team or Squiddy are, but I'll definitely catch up and kind of reconnect and try to make that happen. But yeah,
let them know that we were we are so excited about hosting a tournament for you guys in our platform and doing something like that, because it will be amazing. So thank you so much, Alejo.
I'll definitely make the connections and we'll try to make it happen.
Alejo, thank you very much. This was inspiring. This was amazing. Go get your meeting, and thank you for sharing, for being so open and so humble, bro. Thank you.
Oh man, it's nice of you to have me. Hope to be back soon.
Dude, let's talk soon. Take care. So, people, thank you very much to Alejo, and I'll see you then. This was an amazing experience, and see ya. Yeah, thank you, everyone.